01. The old Zen master's silence. It was late at night. The old Zen master saw a chair next to the monastery wall and immediately realized that a monk had violated regulations by climbing over the wall to go out. The Zen master quietly removed the chair and sat down in its place. Soon after, there was a sound outside. A young monk climbed over the wall to get back in, stepped on the old Zen master's shoulder, and jumped into the courtyard. When his feet touched the ground, he realized that he had stepped not on a chair, but on his master. The monk was terrified, speechless, and stood still, waiting for his master's punishment. Contrary to the young monk's expectation, his master did not scold him loudly. He only spoke softly. "It's cold late at night. Make sure to put on more clothes." The young monk felt deeply ashamed. From that day forward, he never dared to sneak out to play again. Instead, he resolved to dedicate himself to his studies and practice, eventually becoming a renowned monk of his time. 02. How to face criticism and censure. There is an idiom, to call an ox or a horse, meaning one doesn't bother to argue or take offense whether others praise or curse them. This idiom originates from a story told by Zhuangzi. There was a man who considered himself wise named Shi Chengqi. He often heard people praise Laozi for his supernatural and extraordinary wisdom. So he traveled a long distance to pay his respects to Laozi. Upon seeing Laozi's house as messy as a rat's nest, he angrily said, "I heard people say you are a saint with profound wisdom. I traveled hundreds of miles to meet you, only to find you no different from a rat." Laozi showed no reaction. Shi Chengqi, having finished his rant, left. The next day, he felt remorseful and returned to apologize to Laozi. Laozi calmly said, "Saint or no saint, such titles I discarded long ago like a worn-out shoe. If I have attained the great Tao, what does it matter if you call me an ox, a horse, or a rat? I am still myself." Living in this world, it's inevitable to be met with anger, criticism, censure, or even slander and defamation from others. If you get angry because of this, it's truly not worth it. Buddhist scriptures say that one must be unmoved by the 8 winds: gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, fame and disgrace. The more intensely you react to other slanders, the less likely it is to end. It's better to remain calm and undisturbed, like water off a duck's back. Zhuangzi once offered an interesting analogy: the empty boat. If you are rowing a boat, and another boat, whose occupant is not a skilled rower, collides with yours, you might get angry. But what if there's no one on that other boat? If it's just an empty boat being carried by the wind, would you still get angry? A common human ailment is to overly exalt oneself, to attach too much importance to one's own ego, to consider oneself the center of the universe. Overemphasizing oneself easily leads to conflicts with others. If you adopt the mindset of an empty boat, life will have fewer struggles, and people will be less annoyed and angered. Many issues in life cannot be resolved by anger alone. Knowing how to let go and not making oneself the center makes it easier to resolve all conflicts. 03. Wanting to take the bodhisattva's place. A beggar, passing by a temple, saw a crowd and curiously stepped inside. Looking up at the main hall, he saw a bodhisattva sitting serenely on a lotus pedestal. The beggar asked, "Bodhisattva, may I switch places with you?" The bodhisattva replied, "As long as you sit here and say nothing, it's fine." Thinking it was too easy, the beggar quickly agreed and ascended the lotus pedestal. Before his eyes was a chaotic, conflict-ridden world. People prayed for this, prayed for that, not a moment's rest. However, having promised the bodhisattva not to speak, he remained silent. One day, a wealthy man came to pray. "Bodhisattva, please bestow blessings upon me." This man bowed repeatedly, kneeling and prostrating over and over. Unfortunately, his money bag fell out, but the rich man was completely unaware. The beggar was about to open his mouth to remind the rich man, but remembering the bodhisattva's instruction, he patiently refrained from speaking. After the wealthy man left, a poor, hungry man arrived. The poor man pleaded, "Bodhisattva, please help me. Grant me some money. Someone in my family is seriously ill and I have no money for treatment. I need it urgently." After praying, he bowed down. When he looked up, he saw a money bag nearby. Overjoyed, the poor man exclaimed, "The Bodhisattva is truly miraculous." Having obtained the money, he quickly left. The beggar, sitting on the lotus pedestal, witnessed everything. He was about to open his mouth to say that it wasn't the Bodhisattva's miracle, but the rich man's dropped money. But remembering the Bodhisattva's words, he stopped himself again. At that moment, a fisherman arrived. The fisherman prayed, "Bodhisattva, please grant me safety for my voyage, that I may not encounter big waves or strong winds." After praying, as he was about to turn and leave, the wealthy man who had lost his money returned. The rich man assumed the fisherman had picked up his lost money bag and not returned it, and a conflict arose. The two men began to fight, the rich man insisting his money bag had been taken by the fisherman, and the fisherman, feeling wronged, could no longer restrain himself. Witnessing this scene, the beggar could no longer bear it and shouted loudly, "Stop!" Then he stepped down and revealed the entire truth. Everything was resolved smoothly. When the beggar had finished handling the situation, the Bodhisattva asked him, "Do you think your handling of the situation was correct? You are better off remaining a beggar. You opened your mouth and spoke the truth, believing it to be just, but you did not know that the poor man would not have had the money to save his family member's life. The rich man would not have accumulated merit, and the fisherman would have gone out to sea, been capsized by waves, and drowned. If you had not spoken, the poor man would have had money to save his family member's life, the rich man would have lost a little money but saved a life and accumulated merit. And finally, the fisherman, because of the misunderstanding, would have been delayed and entangled, missing his boat's departure, thus preserving his life." The beggar bowed deeply when he understood the problem and quietly left. That is the lesson from this life story about silence. We think silence is easy to maintain, but in reality, it requires high wisdom. Therefore, from the life story above, we learn that it is best to let everything unfold as it may. Everything will happen in the best possible way as it is meant to be. There are things that seem like good deeds we offer out of kindness, but in fact, we are ruining them. When we find ourselves in a certain situation, it might seem good but turn out bad, while some things that seem bad turn out to be perfect. That is the beauty of life, when no one can predict what will happen to us next. Thus, being able to silently observe the changes in life is also a kind of ability, and living according to the natural flow of things is also a kind of happiness. 04. Monk Đại Hưng had a child. Monk Đại Hưng was one such high-ranking monk. Let me tell you the story between Monk Đại Hưng and the young woman named Ngoc Trinh. The story goes that when Monk Đại Hưng was still practicing on the mountain, at the foot of Jihua Mountain, there lived a very wealthy family. They had a daughter named Ngoc Trinh, who was engaged to a young master from another prominent family. 3 years prior, when the wedding date was chosen, Ngoc Trinh became pregnant and gave birth to a baby boy. Her parents were humiliated, both fearful and angry, and they forced her to tell the truth. Finally, unable to bear the family's pressure, Ngoc Trinh confessed that the child's father was Monk Đại Hưng from Jihua Mountain. Ngoc Trinh's father was furious. He brought his servants up the mountain and caused a commotion at the temple. They beat, cursed, and reviled Monk Đại Hưng, demanding that he raise their son. Monk Đại Hưng silently accepted the child, gently saying, "Amitabha Buddha." From that day on, Monk Đại Hưng reputation completely collapsed. Wherever he went, Everyone despised, mocked, and slandered him. Even the monks in the temple no longer respected him as they once did. Yet, he uttered not a single word of complaint. He continued to descend the mountain daily to beg for milk to feed this karma-laden child. Thanks to his meticulous care, the child grew quickly, healthy, and intelligent. Just like that, 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. One day, Noctring's family again went up the mountain to see monk Đại Hưng, but this time they did not scold or humiliate him. Quite the opposite. They knelt, prostrated themselves, and begged for his forgiveness, asking to be allowed to take the child home. It turned out that the child's father was Noctring's current husband, the same young master she had been engaged to years ago. To protect her fiancé's reputation, Noctring had reluctantly slandered monk Đại Hưng. At this point, still with a calm and serene demeanor, he led the child to his parents and respectfully clasped his hands. He said to them, "Amitabha Buddha," before returning to his meditation room. Facing the 3-year-long injustice, monk Đại Hưng chose silence. He did not defend himself, did not explain, nor did he complain or resent a single word. Yet, that silence was more meaningful than 1,000 words. Some might argue that when subjected to humiliation or injustice, everyone has the right to seek justice. That is not only a legitimate right protected by law, but also the principle of fairness in this society. However, for the sages of old, all fame, fortune, enmity, and all gains and losses in this world are merely as light as smoke. The transcendental and detached realm of the enlightened is to view honor and shame as lightly as a flower blooming in the morning and wilting in the evening, to maintain inner tranquility. And if one can view fame, fortune, and worldly gains coming and going as unpredictably as clouds gathering and dispersing, then one can maintain inner inaction, wu wei, and purity. Therefore, gaining without elation, losing without sorrow, being honored without agitation, and being shamed without concern allows the mind to be as still as a lake. Wise, thoughtful, engaging. Once in India, a renowned monk lived deep in a quiet forest, far from the world's noise. He was a profound meditation practitioner and was well known throughout India. One day, a king came and said, "Respected monk, I always feel tired, angry, and troubled. My mind is very chaotic. Although I have everything, wealth, fame, and all the luxuries one could desire, I have no inner peace. Please, monk, help me remove this chaotic mind." The monk said, "You hold the answer within yourself, but you have never discovered it. I want to conduct an experiment. Would you like to participate? After this experiment, your life will no longer be chaotic and anxious." The king was very puzzled to hear this, but still asked the monk what he needed to do. The monk replied in a gentle voice, "For the next 15 days, you will live in my monastery and live like an ordinary person. During these 15 days, you will sit alone, remain silent, and speak as little as possible." The king agreed to the monk's plan. On the first day, he noticed his mind was more restless than usual. Many questions and thoughts arose, and he felt uncomfortable. He truly wanted to speak, but restrained that desire and remained silent, just sitting still. But as night fell, he began to feel a peace and happiness he had not expected. This experience confused him because he couldn't understand why his chaotic mind was gradually dissolving. The next day, the king continued to spend time alone, observing nature, flowers, and birds. For the first time, he truly appreciated the beauty of nature around him. He could observe and connect with the natural world around him. 10 days passed, and all the restlessness and inner turmoil gradually disappeared. On the 12th day, he found himself sinking into deep meditation as his eyes naturally closed. After spending the last 3 days in deep meditation, he approached the monk and said, "Respected monk, I have discovered why my mind was so restless." He explained, I realized that I used to talk too much and expend a lot of energy on others, often thinking negatively about them. This excessive talking and negative thinking wasted my time and cluttered my mind. As a result of this behavior, I was unable to perform my duties effectively, and I began to fail at everything. These continuous failures made me even sadder and more irritable. It continued to negatively impact my life. However, these 15 days have been a transformative experience. Now I feel I am truly living life the right way and realize that I had been living incorrectly before. I also realized that we don't need to force meditation. It happens naturally. The monk spoke gently. It is not only the king. Many people in the world talk too much. Nowadays, many people use words to harm others, and this excessive talking continues to cause problems in their lives. The monk shared with the king the importance of silence and told a story about a disciple who once asked the Buddha, "Why are you often silent?" The Buddha replied, "I remain silent to delve deep within myself. Silence is the first step to truly understanding oneself. Without silence, self-discovery is impossible." The monk continued, "It is not just the king. Many people talk too much. Many problems can be avoided if people remain silent. Someone who understands the value of silence can be peaceful even in a crowded place. Being alone can be like heaven, while the presence of others sometimes makes us uncomfortable. Most importantly, start by seeking peace within yourself and embracing silence. Invite your thoughts to cease. If you wake up feeling confused by the presence of others, close your eyes and reconnect with yourself. You will feel an inner freshness because life originates there, not from others. When no one else can take you inward, you must do it yourself. So look within, for you are the master of your inner life. That is where life begins, and that is where happiness is born. When you look within, you will touch the depths of life and even perceive the movement of death. This inner journey is like observing your life go through ups and downs, like the sunrise and sunset. Every time you embark on this inner journey and return, you will feel renewed. It is like the refreshing feeling after a pleasant bath. Similarly, when someone spends time in silence and reflects on their thoughts, they often feel more peaceful and happier afterward. When you maintain inner silence, speaking does not confuse your mind. Instead, there is always an inner sense of peace. You can speak and still maintain connection with your inner self. You can use words without losing inner peace. When you do this, your words will carry a wonderful quality, like music, and everything will blend and harmonize. Such a way of speaking will deeply touch the souls of others. When you maintain inner silence, you begin to access a powerful inner strength and liberation from social pressures. You will find a special joy in life, similar to the joy of those who pursue their passions. Your face will radiate a new light, and your eyes will sparkle with a special glow. As you immerse yourself in the ocean of infinite peace, you may realize that talking too much does not bring peace to the soul. On the contrary, it makes it difficult to control thoughts and maintain focus. Those who talk excessively often have difficulty concentrating on a task, so they cannot dedicate their full attention to their goals, and often misunderstanding the true meaning of life, making it harder to achieve their aspirations. Additionally, you may notice that those who talk excessively are sometimes ridiculed by others, while those who speak little will gain respect from others because people often pay attention to what a quiet person says and trust their promises. People with restless souls often find it difficult to succeed because they lack genuine interest in their work. True wisdom lies in knowing when and what to say, and those who develop this skill often succeed in many situations. A person of few words often becomes the center of attention and frequently succeeds in various fields. When observing the characteristics of great people, we see they use few words carefully, considering what they say, and this contributes to their success. Conversely, Many who talk excessively often resort to dishonesty and spread negativity about others, harming relationships and reputations. Therefore, those around them often avoid them. 16. A father and daughter's joy on the train. There were a father and daughter on a train. The daughter, about 10 years old, wore a small red padded jacket, her large bright eyes sparkling. The father wore worn-out, old-fashioned clothes. When the train started, the little girl was extremely excited. She kept looking out the window, her eyes filled with joy. She said, "Daddy, are we passing through the chai fields that we usually eat? They're growing so well." Her voice was incredibly clear. Many people heard her and looked out the window, only to find that it wasn't chai fields outside, but a field of barley. "No, those aren't chives, they're barley, used to make steamed buns," the father corrected his daughter. After that, the little girl continued to describe yellow wildflowers as green and a huge billboard as a small blackboard. Her father showed no anger, always smiling as he corrected her. After a while, a woman nearby couldn't help but laugh loudly. "I can't believe this little girl is so pretty, but seems to have a problem with her mind." Although the woman spoke as softly as possible, the little girl's father still heard her. A momentary look of awkwardness appeared on the father's face. A moment later, the father offered a simple, apologetic smile, saying, "I'm so sorry, my daughter has never been able to see. She just had surgery. This is her first time seeing the world with her own eyes, so she's a bit excited. I hope she's not disturbing anyone's rest." After speaking, the father hugged his daughter, advising her to speak more softly. The little girl was stunned for a moment, and then a faint sadness enveloped her. She slumped her face onto the table, feeling dejected. Perhaps noticing something was wrong with his daughter, the father began to devote all his energy to talking with her. But despite his efforts, even pretending to be a monster and initiating conversations, his daughter remained silent and withdrawn, no longer interested. We often judge a person by their appearance, quickly evaluating someone at first glance. But judging without knowing someone's full circumstances is often inaccurate and sometimes severely misguided. When you don't know the whole story, when you don't understand the essence of an issue, you shouldn't comment, because such words can sometimes destroy someone else's happiness in an instant. At 2 years old, humans begin to learn to speak, but they spend a lifetime learning how to be silent. Not speaking words that harm others is also a form of self-cultivation, a kind of kindness. Number 7. Never justifying oneself. Gao Feng, during the Eastern Zhen dynasty, served as an imperial censor. Gao Feng was a judge under Zhang Kang in Quanzhou. At that time, a student at the district school named Duan Hangjin stole wood from the official residence to make household items. Zhang Kang, upon learning of this, was furious and wanted to execute him. To save his life, Duan Hangjin falsely confessed, saying that Gao Feng had told him to do it all. Zhang Tseng then questioned Gao Feng to verify Duan Hangjin's statement. To his surprise, Gao Feng admitted to it. Duan Hangjin was thus spared the death penalty. Zhang Tseng then gave 10,000 strings of coins and a horse to Gao Feng and dismissed him. Gao Feng silently departed, from beginning to end not justifying his innocence. Later, Zhang Tseng had to call Gao Feng back. More than a year later, Zhang Tseng's confidant revealed that Gao Feng had admitted guilt because he wanted to save a life. Zhang Kang was extremely surprised and treated Gao Feng with even greater generosity. 08. Silence is the conduct of the wise. The ancients taught, speaking is an ability, but silence is the conduct of the truly wise. Why have the sages of old always been silent? It is because they have regarded all worldly matters lightly, distanced themselves from worldly strife and gossip, allowing their minds to be as still as a lake. Muen Trai retreated to solitude, befriending nature. My neighbor is a wisp of silver cloud. My guests are 2,000 green mountains. When Binghiam withdrew from the world, far from its affairs, I, being foolish, seek quiet places. The wise go to bustling ones. The world is bustling, life is vibrant, and everything draws people into an endless whirlpool from which they cannot escape. Years pass in the blink of an eye. Only when everything has passed do people realize that their souls have been obscured by the dust of the mundane world, weighed down by the temptations of this material world. In that chaos, only the tranquil minds of the sages can overcome the mad infatuation of people in this world. The ancients taught that remembering these 5 arts of dealing with people will surely help you live more wisely. Words once spoken are like arrows released from a bow. Physical wounds may heal over time, but some words will haunt people throughout their lives, tormenting them until their last breath. Therefore, never get angry. Surely we are all too familiar with the saying. Yet it's strange how, when faced with conflict or undesirable situations, we often cannot control our emotions. When anger flares, wisdom departs. When anger burns, people lose their calmness and rationality to consider matters, doing things they would never have expected themselves to do, sometimes even things they will regret for life. Like the story of Genghis Khan. Amidst a scorching thirst in the desolate desert with no one around, 3 times he struggled to collect a small cup of water, only for his beloved eagle to swoop in and knock it over. In a moment of hot temper, unable to control himself, he raised his sword and stabbed it straight into the eagle's chest. Only when searching for the water source did he see the carcass of the deadliest poisonous snake in that land lying next to the puddle. And Genghis Khan realized that the eagle was his benefactor, saving his life 3 times. The eagle had known the water was poisoned, and even if it meant dying by its master's sword, it did not hesitate. But by then, Genghis Khan's regret was too late. The eagle's body had fallen onto the cold ground and would never soar into the sky again. We often think we get angry with others because we want what's best for them. This is no different from fighting evil with evil, awakening deeply hidden negative emotions, especially resentment, in their souls. It's no wonder that shocking massacres occasionally appear in news reports and media, whose initial cause was merely angry words that hurt the perpetrator's self-esteem. The fire of anger not only harms others, but also burns one's internal organs and one's own blessings. Those you love bring blessings. Those you hate bring misfortune. Show empathy and affection even to those who hate you to sow blessings for yourself. Be willing to help those who harm you. When you get angry, it's tantamount to slamming doors shut on your own opportunities right in front of you. Second, absolutely respect others. Whether an emperor or a beggar sleeping by the roadside, all beings possess self-respect equally. When you respect others, you are also respecting yourself. Perhaps you think that as his lover or wife, you have the right to manage him, or that because she is your wife, you can control her life. If so, life will become suffocating. Spouses will often argue, and there will be discord at home. You love and care for your children and think you have the right to choose and decide for them because they are too young and must obey. But when they disagree and start crying, you feel they are not good children. Perhaps you are not wrong, but even though they are small, children desperately need the respect of adults. If adults ask for their opinions, guide them, persuade them, and respect their decisions, children will happily do what you want and take more responsibility for their own lives. Even as a superior, it doesn't mean you can impose your opinions on others. Your employees might comply because they don't want to displease you or affect their future prospects, but you may not truly win their hearts and may even make them want to leave you. When people feel responsible for doing something well, they will voluntarily devote themselves to fulfilling their duties without any urging or supervision. Conversely, when they feel disrespected, people will easily develop a rebellious mentality. They might even defy consequences, willing to hurt others to compensate for their lack of humanity. Therefore, respecting others is a way to have a warm, happy family and smooth, prosperous work without having to exert mental or physical effort or create pressure in your relationships. Third, change your perspective. Each person grows up in a different family, with different relationships and experiences in life. This creates different personalities and ways of thinking among people. If you always use your own standards and beliefs to demand or judge others, this difference could ignite the flame of anger within you. This can cause conflict between both sides and make feelings increasingly fade. So, when we feel someone is odd, stubborn, or unbearable, try changing your perspective. Quiet your heart, listen to their feelings. You might have completely new and moving experiences. As parents, everyone wants their children to be well-behaved and obedient. But each person is an independent individual with different thoughts. You're anxious about being late for work in the morning while the children are still lying down, not yet awake. You take very hurried steps, making the little boys and girls half walk, half run. You can't understand why your child is so clumsy and awkward. It's because they don't yet understand adult life, and their legs are too short to keep up with you. You give her beautiful stones because you love their strength, but she might only accept them to please you. She might long for baskets of dewy morning flowers soaked in rose water. You want the house to always be neat and tidy, but he's messy. You like a pink bedsheet while he prefers blue. So when you feel uncomfortable with someone, perhaps someone else is feeling the same way about you. All things are impermanent. There's no inherent right or wrong. It's simply that each person is a distinct being with different preferences. Only by knowing how to listen and harmonize differences, like the vast ocean, like the boundless earth, can life become beautiful with its myriad colors and forms. Fourth, always observe your thoughts moment by moment. People can control their emotions and behaviors when constantly observing their thoughts moment by moment. Emotions are like a wild horse. If you don't rein it in promptly, it will gallop everywhere, trampling everything in its path. The sages of old often prioritized cultivating morality, and the best method they applied was to review each of their thoughts and actions every day before going to bed. This would help them promptly identify shortcomings and continuously improve themselves. These reflections are the threads that help you uncover the undesirable intentions hidden deep within your soul. You see a beautiful girl walk by and suddenly feel a pang of envy. Perhaps you're feeling envious of her and that life is unfair to you? You see a long-desired car flash by and you think you would excite and impress many people when holding that steering wheel. You'll work harder to soon own that car. Perhaps you're using that luxurious material life to measure your self-worth instead of moral values. Constantly observing your thoughts will also help you understand yourself better, to understand what is truly important to you. You also won't waste time on useless activities or emotions on people who are not meant for you. We often want to change others, forgetting that each person can only change themselves. When one's mind changes, circumstances will also transform. By continuously improving yourself, you will become like a precious gem, a beautiful flower. There's a saying, a true fragrance will naturally spread, meaning when you are truly excellent, good things will naturally come to you. Fifth, silence is golden. We often hear, good wine, drunk too much, also intoxicates. Wise words, spoken too much, even if good, become tiresome. And empty vessels make the most noise. Deep waters run still. Silence doesn't mean you are incompetent or inferior. On the contrary, it makes you more valuable in the eyes of others. Knowing when to be silent is also a way to show respect for others and have the opportunity to understand them better. If, in a crowd, you constantly drone on with fascinating stories and draw all attention to yourself, you might make someone else feel a pang of sadness. They might feel dull and less noticed than they desire. They also won't have the opportunity to express themselves and share their knowledge. Thus, you won't be able to win their affection. When silent, you can observe more of others' nonverbal cues. Silence is also a way to show your humility. When listened to, others feel happy and want to open up to you. Misfortune exits through the mouth, sickness enters through the mouth. Silence also provides you with a period of truce, enough to soothe your anger or negative emotions without uttering sharp words that harm others. Silence and keeping secrets also make you more trustworthy and help you avoid unnecessary gossip and trouble. The same statement, like a game of telephone, can be distorted. When it reaches others, placed in different contexts, it makes people interpret it in different ways. Lightly, it causes small conflicts and misunderstandings in your relationships. Heavily, it can even shake your happiness and career. Only by continuously refining and cultivating oneself with genuine moral virtues will the God of luck and happiness smile upon you. In fact, these golden principles are about restraining personal desires and avoiding harming others, thereby bringing harmony and a happy life to both sides. Jihua Mountain is known as a place where many high-ranking monks have achieved enlightenment, their physical bodies remaining intact for many years after their passing, as if they were merely sleeping. 09. 18 Buddhist Teachings on Daily Speech and Conduct. 1. For urgent matters, speak slowly. Life will not lack times when you encounter difficult situations that need quick resolution. But precisely in such moments, you need to remain utterly calm. Think for a moment and then slowly and clearly explain the situation. At that time, the listener will feel your stability, and their trust in the information you just conveyed will increase. 2. For minor matters, speak humorously. Sometimes, just by using humorous words, you can increase friendliness between yourself and those around you. Especially when giving a reminder to someone, instead of speaking directly, you can use jokes, which will make the listener feel less rigid or burdened, and they will accept your reminder happily. 3. For matters not clearly understood, speak cautiously. Every issue in life has many sides, many different perspectives. There will be things you don't fully understand. In such cases, consider carefully before speaking, as you might unintentionally affect others. Caution will make the listener feel that you are a trustworthy person. 4. For things that haven't happened, don't speak carelessly. Things that haven't happened cannot be predicted. You cannot know how they will unfold. Moreover, people dislike presumptive talk. Therefore, never speculate arbitrarily or speak of things that haven't occurred. When you refrain from this, people will feel that you are a mature, cultivated, and responsible individual who works diligently. 5. For things not yet done, don't promise lightly. There's a saying, don't bite off more than you can chew. If you are not sure you can do something, you should not promise it to others. They will lose trust in you. Trust is very important. It's hard to build and easy to lose in an instant. Not promising what you haven't done will make the listener feel that you are a person of your word, someone who delivers on promises, and they will trust you deeply. 6. Do not speak words that hurt others. You should not say things that hurt those around you, especially loved ones. People will feel that you are kind-hearted, which helps maintain and deepen affection. Living together in this world is based on human connection. Cherish and love one another. 7. For painful matters, don't tell everyone. When someone is hurt, they naturally want to confide in others. But if you tell everyone you meet, it will put a great burden on the listener, easily leading to suspicion and avoidance. At the same time, you will leave the impression that you want to dump your suffering onto others. 8. For others' affairs, be cautious with your words. There needs to be a safe distance between people. Closeness is valuable, but know how to maintain boundaries. If it's not your business, don't talk about it. This will provide a sense of security to the people you interact with. 9. For your own matters, listen to what others say. Pay attention to what others say about your affairs. This shows that you are reasonable and creates an impression of humility in others. Don't react hastily. Calmly think things through to better understand and empathize. 10. For children's matters, speak clearly. Especially during adolescence, children's psychology can be easily agitated and often overwhelmed by emotions. Therefore, use a gentle yet firm attitude to speak to them clearly. This can foster good feelings between you and your child, making them see you as a friend, and at the same time, it can be persuasive.
11. Do not speak disheartening, discouraging words. In life, it's essential to speak words that encourage and motivate others as well as yourself. That will be an incredibly powerful motivation for you to strive. The same applies to others. Sometimes just a word of encouragement can make them change dramatically. Even if no one says such things to you, you must encourage yourself. If you don't encourage your own aspirations but instead speak discouraging words, you will naturally fall into a deep abyss of despondency.
12. Do not speak angry words. When angry, you lose control of yourself, your thoughts, and your actions. Therefore, you might unintentionally blurt out words that hurt others, or sometimes even hurt yourself. When insulted, it is most important to be clear-headed. Do not speak casually, because in such moments, words are often very harsh. It is best to remain silent. 13. Do not speak words of complaint. When dissatisfied, people often utter words of dissatisfaction, complaining about their boss, friends, or even family. If you constantly speak words of complaint, others who hear them will later use them as topics to talk about you, causing discord and gossip, making you deal with this person and that person, ultimately bringing suffering upon yourself. Why put yourself through such hardship? 14. Do not speak harmful words. Many people tend to utter insults and hurtful words to others, but what do they gain in return? Perhaps temporary satisfaction in that moment, but in exchange, their character will be looked down upon by others. The damage is permanent. 15. Do not speak boastful words. Many people tend to inflate themselves, to self-aggrandize. This makes others dislike them. On the contrary, it creates a negative perception. If you are truly talented, others will evaluate you. You don't need to self-proclaim. It is best to maintain humility. 16. Do not speak false words. Buddhism teaches the 5 precepts, and abstaining from lying is one of them. You know, lying leads to extremely serious consequences. Trust is lost. When that happens, you will feel regret for what you have done. Be honest and pure, and you will be loved and respected by everyone. 17. Do not speak secret words. Everyone has their secrets, big or small. But if it's a secret, keep it to yourself. Don't speak it carelessly, because if you do, the consequences might be many times greater than you imagine. Understanding its seriousness will prevent you from speaking carelessly. 18. Do not speak private matters. Everyone has their private matters. Of course, you don't want others to know your private affairs. And you certainly cannot talk carelessly about others' private matters. Even if you reveal all of someone else's private affairs and they don't retaliate, your bad character has already been exposed. Afterward, it will be difficult for you to have good fortune. 10. Silence brings unparalleled strength. In today's bustling modern life, everyone wants to express themselves, and we forget that silence is golden. By talking too much, we lose the value of tranquility. In fact, many times we offer straightforward advice based on personal opinions, believing ourselves to be good people. But be careful, for speaking frankly and truthfully can sometimes lead to negative karma. The ancients said, "When a person talks incessantly, their thoughts have already been half murdered by their own garrulous mouth." Maintaining silence and tranquility is often a strategy, the smartest way to interact with others and resolve situations. Tranquility and silence do not mean saying nothing at all, but rather thinking twice before speaking. That is, only speaking what needs to be said and knowing when to stop. Wise often possesses immense power. This power is like being able to gather all the colors of light.
Throughout history, few have regretted being quiet, but many have regretted talking too much to an irrecoverable extent. In life, sincere people usually speak little. Those with deep, cunning plans also speak little. But it's better to be criticized for speaking little than to be criticized for speaking too much. A slip of the foot you may recover, but a slip of the tongue you may never.
Petty people speak chaotically and emptily. Noble people speak concisely and truthfully. Speech comes from human nature. Silence comes from wisdom. The wise think before they speak. The ignorant speak before they think. Those who truly understand things often do not babble aimlessly. Instead, they are not easily predictable by others through their facial expressions or tone of voice. The more talented a person is, the less they feel the need to prove anything. In fact, they don't want to reveal their talents because they understand the importance of thinking things through before speaking.
People often say empty vessels make the most noise to show that those who lack knowledge and wisdom speak aimlessly or foolishly to cover up their own deficiencies. Therefore, there's also a saying, a true person of wisdom/power does not reveal their true form or abilities. One who reveals their form is not a true person. A truly wise person uses defense to attack, uses silence to speak. So, if misunderstood, should one just remain silent? When not understood, we need to be open and sociable so that others can understand us better. However, if you feel that someone truly cannot or does not want to understand, then it is best to remain silent. With someone who imposes their opinions, even if you speak, they will intentionally refuse to understand, so the best way is to remain silent. Ordinary people are always busy talking about what they know, but wise people are always busy listening to what others say. Thus, the wiser a person is, the more they know how to listen. Silence is the kingdom of mental activity from which masterpieces, nobility, understanding, growth, and introspection emerge, stated the writer Goethe. He also determined, talent is nurtured in solitude while character is forged by the wild waves of life's storms. Final part, 3 things not to say. A proverb says, sickness enters through the mouth, misfortune exits through the mouth. This saying originates from Taiping Yulan, compiled during the Song Dynasty. Its main meaning is that sickness results from careless eating, while misfortune is caused by inappropriate speech. The ancients later used it as a guiding principle for life. Thus, blessings come with signs, and misfortunes also have reasons. Don't indulge your emotions and do wrong things, and don't let your mouth speak whatever it wants. Because even a small anthill can undermine a dam, and a tiny trickle of water can erode a mighty mountain. Therefore, it is said, sickness results from careless eating, while misfortune is caused by inappropriate speech. In life, examples of misfortune exiting through the mouth can be seen everywhere. If everyone were careful with their words, perhaps there would be much less misfortune in the world. Thus, one's speech reflects the level of their self-cultivation and emotional intelligence. A person who knows how to speak to others will, during conversations, avoid mentioning 3 things related to themselves. 1. Speak less of your secrets. Many people have secrets, and sometimes, whether big or small, they will tell those secrets to others. Revealing all secrets is also a way to vent one's negative emotions. It's hard for people to avoid negative emotions. When a person experiences negative emotions, they will talk about their affairs to friends or close relatives, and at that time, they very easily reveal their own secrets. A secret is something that makes others both curious and surprised, because it represents what you have done previously that no one else knows besides yourself. But now you are revealing that secret. Speaking it out is not terrifying. What is terrifying is speaking it to ill-intentioned people. Those people will exploit your secrets to do wrong things to you. A secret is hidden deepest in one's heart. Under pressure, you will want to share it with others. Therefore, don't easily reveal secrets unless you feel this secret could be beneficial to others. Otherwise, don't speak your secrets to anyone. 2. Speak less of your past. Each person has a past. It may be painful scars or evidence of our success. All these past events, we cannot, nor do we need to, erase them, but we must view them as a lesson for future life or as a motivation to push oneself more powerfully forward. Some people, when talking, really like to bring up their past, then add a sentence. If I hadn't done that then, maybe things wouldn't be like this now. The speaker doesn't find it troublesome, but the listener feels it's meaningless. When people talk to you, they want to hear you talk about useful things, not to listen to you drone on about the past. Furthermore, things in the past are already in the past. Therefore, we don't need to tell them again to others. What truly represents one's life is the present and the future. Besides, if you're talking to others and constantly bring up your past, what you gain is only sympathy from others, and what you might lose is credibility and friends. We all have a past, but that past is only our own past. It's irrelevant to other stories. 3. Speak less of your own success. Based on observation, successful people rarely announce their successes everywhere. They tell it very casually, briefly. But unsuccessful people often talk about their past successes. Everyone has one or two instances that might be considered successes, but truly aren't worth talking about. What a person says, such as the content of the discussion, the examples given, clearly reveal their own character. When you tell others about your success, it is considered a disguised form of boasting. Boasting that success didn't come easily to you. Boasting that you're very pleased with your success. True success is not easy, but it shouldn't be a casual after-dinner conversation.
Everyone is very busy, so they won't want to waste time just listening to your past successes. When talking to others, one needs skills. People who know how to speak will be listened to by many. People who don't know how to speak, when you want to talk to others, you'll find that you can't find anyone willing to listen to you. Therefore, when speaking, one should not casually reveal secrets, the past, or boast about success. Instead, show the happy aspects of yourself and always remember that we are in the present.